You spent a lot of years in your life being in engineering, creating your company, but when you choose this new path of exploring the mysteries of the universe, you start learning different tools and you start to develop a gift of clairvoyance.
Yeah, and I started to have certain abilities to read the energy of what somebody was projecting, and it was really strange in the beginning to experience it. There is, let's say, a reason why currently the world shows up for you as it shows up for you, and that has a lot to do with, let's say, the limitations that you sort of hold on to and function from, that you don't really know you hold on to and function from. If you want another experience of life, you'll have to let go of some of these limitations, and these limitations are often or almost always in the form of conclusions you believe are true and judgments you hold on to, where you make things wrong or right or good or bad on some level. And those energies are both very limiting and contracting, and we are not aware that we basically experience life and look at the world through a lens that is made up of those constructs. But if you want to change your experience of life, if you want to become aware of other possibilities, if you want to start making different choices, you'll have to deconstruct some of these limitations.
Welcome to The Power of Creation, the first episode of this podcast. I'm here today, we are in Mexico with Ron, and my name is Javi. I will start introducing you, Ron, so people can know a little more about you. Ron is a very successful engineer. He used to have his own company about renewable energy. He also practiced mountain bike. And after winning many prizes, he started feeling, I don't know if the word is bored, but he felt like the curiosity to start to find another path, another way of living his life. And he went to look for the mysteries of the universe. So he also is the author of this book, Power of Creation. We will be talking more about this today in the episode. So thank you so much, Ron, for being here today.
Thank you for coming all the way from Barcelona. It's really nice for you to be here.
Thank you.
Shall I do a little introduction about you as well?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, we've known each other for a little while now, and I love your story about how you kind of found your way out of maybe a life that had all kinds of problems. And so you were born in Chile, and it was like, I think a lot of people may have experienced in this life. You come to Earth, and it's like not everything is perfectly organized for you, and so you had your share of problems with your family and so on, and then you told me the story about how when you were a teenager you learned about skating, like inline skates, roller skating, and you found, at that time nobody was doing this yet, but you found a pair in Chile, and you kind of started using it to feel happy and to be, playing with yourself rather than being in the situations that were not always so fun to be in for you. And you got like really excited about it, and you started doing it more, and you started to compete. But at that time, of course, there were no competitions for girls yet. So you started to compete as the only girl in competition with boys. And then that took you on a journey around the world. You moved to Barcelona, and you got better, and you started to compete in the biggest competitions in the world, and you also won many prizes in your sport, and you started to get sponsorship deals, and then at some point you started to give clinics for kids and other people that in a way also wanted to use it as a way just to have fun, to maybe escape part of the reality that they weren't very happy with, and so that's a very cool story of how your roller skating took you on that journey around the world. And in the last few years, you've really changed a lot. You quit your corporate job, and you went on a journey where you have been now for over a year giving sessions with scalar energy technology. Maybe we'll talk about that a bit more later also. And basically you just came from 6 months in Asia, and you've been giving these workshops with people to help them with letting go of limitations using that technology. And you really changed your whole life in a way compared to a couple of years ago. And I think it's really a very inspiring story. I think not just the last few years, I think your whole story of how you've sort of managed to find a way out of a life that you didn't want to live in different blocks in a way. Often when we live the story ourselves, we don't really realize how special it is. But
totally.
Yes, but I think when people hear your story, I think it's something that they find inspiring, and you sometimes without knowing we are like a bit of an example for other people to think, oh, wow, it's maybe possible for me as well. And I think you're a person like that has lived a life up until now that shows others that there are really other possibilities that, you know, a couple of years before you were there, you couldn't imagine living the life that you are now. No? So I'm very grateful for you to come and to have some conversation with you this week. It's very nice.
Thank you so much. I couldn't say it better. Such an amazing introduction.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's true. I think I forgot to say, I have to add something else to your introduction, that you started being in your life, well, you did many things, of course, but you spent a lot of years in your life being in engineering, creating your company, but when you choose this new path of exploring the mysteries of the universe, you start learning different tools and you start to develop a gift of clairvoyance.
Yeah.
So I think this is very inspiring also for many people that are not too connected with their own energy.
Yeah, I don't know if it's inspiring, but it occurred in my case. Yes, I in a way was was at least trained in a very irrational way, and I lived and worked like that for the majority of my life. And at some point I went on this journey and I started to transform, and I started to have certain abilities to read the energy of what somebody was projecting, and it was really strange in the beginning to experience it, and it became like the ability started to increase in its potency in a way. The clarity came more often. The questions I was able to ask that would really immediately get to the essence of what was behind somebody's limitation would just come to me. You know, I would just know. And it's been a very cool experience to have this woken up inside of me in a way. And we'll see where the next chapter of life goes. But it's something I could have never imagined would occur. But it's there now. So, and it's great to use because it can be an immensely fast way to get somebody to the thing that maybe that person has been carrying around for 20 years, you know, and it made them sick, or it made them whatever, having all kinds of things that they don't want to experience in their lives, or preventing them from create more. And so it's very cool if somebody's at a point where they're willing to let it go, and I see it, and I have you've experienced it a few times. And
I experienced it myself.
Yes. Yeah, it's very cool. So
amazing. I know that all the people and friends that are watching us in this moment, maybe they are, I can understand sometimes they are curious to start to see themselves a different way of living their life, right? So as you change 360 degrees your own life, I did it also at some point, and I have to say that many things that I applied in my life, I learned them from you. How can we bring the people to this new awareness to start to see different possibilities in their own life?
Yeah. So I think one thing that is very fundamental to understanding is that when you live a certain experience of your life and you want to change that because some things are not fun for you, or you would like to experience something else, there is, let's say, a reason why currently the world shows up for you as it shows up for you. And that has a lot to do with, let's say, the limitations that you sort of hold on to and function from, that you don't really know you hold on to and function from. And they are in a way the energy that you are and you project into the world. And if you want another experience of life, you'll have to let go of some of these limitations. And these limitations are often, or almost always, in the form of conclusions you believe are true and judgments you hold on to, where you make things wrong or right or good or bad on some level. And those energies are both very limiting and contracting, and we are not aware that we basically experience life and look at the world through a lens that is made up of those constructs. But if you want to change your experience of life, if you want to become aware of other possibilities, if you want to start making different choices, you'll have to deconstruct some of these limitations. And that is something that, of course, we don't really get taught in school that much, but it's something that is essential to sort of accept that, we create our own experience through these limitations that we hold on to. And it's not, we try to sometimes rationally figure this out, but these things are in a way more energetic things that we hold on to in our world that we need to dissolve, that we need to release. And so thinking about it and having an understanding about it often isn't sufficient to really let it go, to really dissolve it, to know it enough to be able to just poof. And so it's going to a place where you're curious enough to look at what those things are for you, and then have an understanding of what is required to dissolve them.
And from your experience, where do you think this limitation come from?
I don't know always where they come from. I mean, they're there, right? All this, why are they there? You go into your mind and try to look for a limitation or for an explanation. But of course, we live lives and we get exposed to all kinds of things, and we pick up all kinds of things on the way. And especially, when we're younger, this happens a lot, but this goes through lifetime. So, and it's different for everybody. Some people have strong connections to other, let's say, lifetimes, other experiences that they had that are not, let's say, part of this incarnation. And some of these can be very difficult for people to release, and others, maybe hold on to stuff that's more based from their childhood, it can come from anywhere, And so there is not a general, this is where it comes from always. But in essence, we are sponges that absorb these things that are in these energies that exist out there in our reality, and it's more important that you start to acknowledge that they are there, and that you start to understand there is a way to get rid of them, and then the how is a little bit specific to whatever is going on in that person's individual world.
Yeah, in your book you talk about many different tools that can help people to start getting rid of these limitations and start to understand them, right? Which one do you think would be like the first one to start if someone is getting curious in their own lives?
Yeah. The first one is, instead of trying to understand everything with your mind, which is what we do a lot of the time, is ask a question to yourself or to the universe, or you'll put a question in your awareness, and don't go figure out the answer. So let's say you're in a situation that is something that you don't really enjoy. Mm-hmm. Rather than going into your mind and try to figure out what's going on, what you're doing wrong, and where it comes from, and because you go into a whole maze of your rational mind trying to figure it out, and things, when you understand it, it's going to be resolved, and no, your rational mind can only work with, let's say, the elements that are already there, the stuff you already know. You keep making combinations with the same things that got you stuck in the first place. So rather than doing that, one thing that you can do is ask a question, and they can be very simple. What would it take to change this, or how can this get better? And just do nothing else than be present with that question for a while. And the idea is that if you start practicing this more often, you get that moment that people will have recognized in their life many times. Maybe you go for a walk, or you're in the shower, and all of a sudden, poof, you get this awareness, you get this impulse almost from outside of you, where and it gives you a clarity that you hadn't thought of before, that you hadn't, that idea that was never in your world until then. And in a way, what you do when you ask a question is open yourself up to receive those kind of impulses, and they always come in the most surprising moments and in the most surprising ways. And the more you are able to not always try to figure out how it works, or always, have your mind come up with a solution, and the more you start to be curious by just putting a question out there and go on with your day, the more often you will get these little hits to, give you that new idea. And the more you start to also notice that, let's say, the energy that you have when you're in a situation that you don't really like, or you want to change something about, just by asking the question, you feel, let's say, almost that you relax a little bit, because the question sort of opens it up. It's an energetic, let's say, release, rather than going to that, I want to figure it out, and I'm thinking, which puts you further in that box where you don't want to be. So that's a tool that is very powerful, very simple, and very rarely used by many people. Ask a question, and don't go figure out the answer to the question in your head. Okay.
That's not easy, right? We are not used to think like that, but...
Yes. by saying it's not easy, don't really help yourself because you're setting yourself up for, rather saying, okay, what would it take for this to be easy for me? Right. So that's a little example of how you could, every time with your thought, with your, the words you speak, you kind of create either the space or the contraction. It's not easy, right? What would it take for this to be easy for me?
Yeah.
But it is true that we are very trained to use our mind a lot, and in the beginning, there will be a lot of, a tendency and to maybe use your brain. And with all things, with a little bit of practice, these things get easier and easier, and you recognize the moment, you remember yourself. No, wait, go to question, rather than try to figure it out.
And you used to work as an engineer full time, and of course you solve problems, right, as an engineer. So your mind has to be very active, controlling everything, many possibilities.
Yeah.
And to get to the point to do the way you use your mind now.
Yeah.
It was difficult for you. How was your experience?
I think for me, it's true that I have a very active brain and I'm in my head a lot, and that still is something that, I have an active mind in a way, and it's also like a capability. I have an ability to solve problems, and so part of that is just is also a gift. But for me, I don't know if that was the hardest part. I think the most difficult thing initially was to recognize where I was judging, and it was the need to be right about things. That was the most, let's say, tenacious to first start to recognize and acknowledge, and then to start to let go. So it was, I think that was probably the most sticky part of the transformation for me. And yeah, it's something that requires some attention. But if, like, the moment you kind of realize that these things really kill whatever it is that you want to create in your life, for me, the motivation was very strong, because I'm like, okay, this is the game. Like, if I can get rid of these things, my life will go to the next level. The way I feel every day will go to the next level. I really knew that on a very deep level. And so, and it's true, because I don't say I'm done, but I've advanced on that path quite a bit, and it works that way. But that was that was a road that took some work and some time for me.
And who do you wrote this book for a group of people? What kind of people, or because it's not for everyone?
Yes, I think I didn't really think about who am I writing this for when I was writing it. I just wanted to write this book, but the idea was there must be many people that want to create a different experience of their life. And I wrote it around the creation of a venture. There can be a company or a project, but your life in a way is also a venture, because you're creating that too, maybe not to make money, but, and so the idea that I had is, okay, there are so many people that would like to increase their power to create. There must be so many people that would be willing to let go of the limitation that prevents them to create greater, to create beyond where they are. And so in a way, it's written about creating ventures, creating projects, but it is really for everybody who's curious to become aware of the limitations that they are functioning from, but they do not know they're functioning from, and want to get some very powerful tools to let go of them. And it's basically a game of raising your consciousness, right? That's in the end what we are doing, because all these limiting constructs, these judgments and these conclusions, they bring you in the lower frequencies, because they're contracting energies, they're limiting energies, no? And so you're going into that place where you're living from those perspectives, that lens. And so in those lower frequencies, you can't have the more expansive experiences. You are not as powerful as you can be. You bring yourself to a lower state. It's not wrong. You can experience different things there, but if you are not enjoying that and you want to change that, then it's important to release these things that bring you there and keep you there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been applying some of the tools to my own life, and yeah, of course, I know you before you write the book, but since I start applying all these tools, I start to feel that things come with ease.
Yeah.
And in my experience also in the relation with the money.
Yeah.
So why do you think when you start to stop judging and start receiving on all these things that you explain, your life start to change? What is going on?
Yeah. So this really comes down to, of course, when we live our life, or we live our lives, the majority of people, at least for the majority of time, experience this world, this reality, as something that kind of happens to them, right? They think that they're just this person that walks around in this world and all these things are happening and it has nothing to do with who they are. And they're not really the creator of their experience. They're kind of the victim of the circumstances, and they try their best to make the best out of whatever is possible within the context of the reality that is absolutely has nothing to do with them. But that's not quite accurate. Actually, it's just not true. It's much more so that you are, in a way, an energy that you project into the world that gets reflected back to you. And so when you start to dissolve these things, the energy of you, in a way, cleans up, right? The contracting energies that you walk around with in your backpack, they start to no longer be part of the projection of, the energy that you put out into the world. And because that just gets reflected back to you, these things that basically hold you down or don't work for you or whatever problems, manifest in that reality for you, they just don't get mirrored back in the same way because you're not bringing that low vibrational energy, those low frequencies, into the world. And it's really correct what you said before. It's true what you said. Like, it's not about, I have so much motivation now, I can work 15 hours a day and I never get tired and that kind of high energy adrenaline. No, it has nothing to do with it. It is about poof, and it's there. And you're like, whoa, how did that happen? Yeah, I mean, it didn't. The only thing that happened is that you let go of something that was preventing that to come into your world. So it's not power of creation in the sense of, I become more powerful, that the whole masculine do more effort, harder work, more suffering, more pain. It is the ease with which things just start showing up for you because you let go of the thing that prevented that thing to come into your world in the first place.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it is amazing.
And when you start to put all these tools together and you have your book finished, what happened in you, in your life? Because this was a journey. It wasn't something from one day to another.
Writing
right?
the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. There had been. I had already changed quite a bit in the years leading up to the book because I had, and that was the time where the impulse and the idea for the book came. I never thought I would ever write a book in my life. I never thought about it until the idea for the book came, and I was like, I'm gonna write a book? That's so weird. And so it wasn't like, oh, I want to be a published author or I had a dream about writing a book. I never thought about it even once my entire life. So it was really just an impulse that I received that had nothing to do with an ambition that I had. But by that time, I had already gone through quite a bit. Now, as you write the book, it's in a way writing a book, and it's not just for a book. I mean, if you're creating a company or making music or whatever it is that you are creating into the world, it is, in a way, you allow the energy to flow through you and you bring that into this world in whatever form that is. Now, I guess the art or the thing that happens is you have so many of these limitations going on that the energy, in a way, comes, but you distort it so much and you're like, here is a book, but it's like, yeah, okay, the ideas originally were very nice, but because you're so sort of contracted and limited and distorted in all these subtle little ways, the output is a little bit like it's a nice first try, but it's not very clean yet. So the process of writing is very much also a process where you really get to intimately know the things you write about because you deconstruct them and put them together again. And so, but the first version that I did was that when I was finished for, let's say, the first time was like a year ago, and I just did a major edit, and the clarity that I had now when I would see the book again was I was just on another level. And so the book has increased in clarity and power and in elegance and simplicity in many ways, because you read the first version and you've read this one and you can tell you can just tell how much cleaner it is. So it's really, and this is, I think, true with everything we do, whether we're creating a company or we're even learning how to paint or we're learning how to make music. These are journeys where we're cleaning up all these things that prevent us from showing up in the full version of ourselves, allowing, those things just to flow through them and bringing those creations into a world in the most beautiful way. So
I think that some of the things that I like the most of your book is that it's not like a recipe where you follow just the steps. It's something you need to experience. And it's not only about understanding the new perspective. It's about to feel the lightness, feel your energy, having more connection with your body. But I also like that you, in a part of the book, you explain, like, I'm gonna do like an explanation for your logical mind.
Right.
And I would love that you share with us these three, it's like states of our consciousness.
Right.
So people that is watching us can get a sense of the logical explanation.
Yeah. So the idea of consciousness, of course, is not really that it is to be understood by our rational mind, right? Consciousness is just to be experienced, and an increase in your consciousness is just something to experience. However, our rational minds will do what it will do, and it will try to understand what it is and, how these things are related to each other and so on and so on. And so there have been quite a few attempts by all kinds of people in the world to basically create a ranking of consciousness or a scale of consciousness and so on and so on. And it's okay. It's not necessarily what is true, but it is a helpful way of looking at it, a helpful way of, having a perspective of how, in a way, these different levels of consciousness could be understood. And you could see consciousness as frequencies, right? So there is just a whole range of frequencies that we can get to experience in the world, in this world. And depending on which frequency you tap into, in a way, or you are being in that moment, the experience that you will have is going to be different. And so if you go to the experience of the more lower frequencies, you typically are in, let's say, what we recognize as emotions, like shame or hate or regret or fear or pride. And they are, in a way, contracting experiences that are not fun for us to experience, mostly. And they bring us into these lower expressions of consciousness. And this is also where we basically are in the first layer of the three that you referred to, where we don't feel at all that we are capable of creating our own experience of life. We are a victim of the circumstances of whatever is happening to us, right? This is the experience you have when you are in those lower vibrations. And it's not like we are always, because we are at a certain state of our consciousness, blah, 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 so we are always in that state. No, we often experience, let's say, a bandwidth of lower and sometimes higher frequency. There's sort of a moment where we're feeling really sad about ourselves, and everything is really, everybody is to blame for whatever is happening to us. And then, maybe the week after, we have a great moment of clarity and presence, and we're doing the things, and we're creating our own experience, and we're on cloud nine, and, it's like, and the same person can experience both those things.
Can I ask you about the pride? Because pride is something that we all think that pride is good, that we need to be proud of who we are, right?
Yes.
Why pride is a low frequency emotion?
Yes. So there's two things to be sort of to differentiate between. It's okay to be proud about something that you maybe have accomplished or done. You can acknowledge that and feel really good about it. That's okay.
Okay.
But that's more, it leans more to the energy of gratefulness and to like really acknowledge about, wow, that was so amazing that I done all these things and now I'm here, and that's a very grateful and expansive experience. But pride is more like where in the extreme cases, and if you look at world politics, there is a lot of pride going on. If you think about, the Middle Eastern conflict with Israel, like the amount of pride that is about, I am from this country and I am from this religion, and I'm so aware this as a badge of honor, this whole nationalism, and it's everywhere in the world, not just, but this really is, I am making me better than something else. I am making my set of values superior to something else. And this is just separation, right? That's just it's separation. And so this is, I need to be right about my whatever I need to be right about. And when you need to be right, there is no right without a wrong. And so pride, you have to go into judgment and make something right and something else wrong for that pride to exist.
Okay.
And so it may not be as low as a frequency as shame, which is really even that you can imagine. Shame is a very low frequency to experience, but it is still a destructive energy, and it is because it is based on judgment.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
We go back to the 3 steps.
Yeah.
Okay, so these lower frequencies, we are in the victim of everything, and we have absolutely no awareness that we are able to control the experience of our life. This is, in a way, these are the destructive frequencies, and it's not wrong, because it's just we are living in this world, in this reality where we can experience all kinds of things, and it all exists. But when you are in those frequencies, you will have an experience of that's a destructive, let's say, a destructive frequency bandwidth. And some people live there all the time, and some people tap into that occasionally, and maybe as you start to release some of these things that we spoke about before, you go there less and less and less and less often. And so that's, in a way, the ideal. So if you like make a bit of a technocratic version of what we spoke about before, it is about getting you to let go of these things that put you in those frequency levels where you are, in a way, destructive to the creation of your own experience of life. And if that's your company or something else, it doesn't matter. It's, so that's, let's say, the first bandwidth, the first sort of range of frequencies, the first range of consciousness at the lower levels. They are, in a way, destructive. Then at some point you tap or step over to the level where you start to become creative. You start to experience the frequencies from which you are becoming the creator of the experience of your life. And that goes up and up and up, and at some point you kind of transcend the, let's say, the emotionalism of these lower bandwidths, and you start to tap into the more, let's say, rational part of the experience of life. And it's there, it's a very much a knowledge-based and let's say rational, deductive reasoning, valued approach of everything. And although that is a very creative energy, and most of the systems in our world, and certainly in the Western world, but in most of the world, are based on these levels of consciousness. So like law and science and medicine, this is all based on rational thinking, on verifiable information, and this is all about coming to conclusions. This is all about needing to be sort of right about something. And this is really about coming to a conclusion about part of what is there. Because the mind, our rational mind, isn't capable of being aware of all there is. It's only capable of defining the things that it can kind of define and measure and so on. And so in that space, it tries to understand everything that it can understand and then come to a conclusion, and then we can verify it, and then we call it the truth. But that doesn't mean it is true. It means this is what we can conclude based on the information we can process. And now we believe that this is true. But you can see that, for instance, elements such as kindness, empathy, caring, they are expressions of higher levels of consciousness. And they can't be part of that, let's say, more rational, knowledge-based equation. But they are true for what a choice that we make creates. And so, in a way, that's the second threshold where we sort of appreciate that all these rational conclusions, all these rational convictions, all these rational paradigms that we take on as being true are only, let's say, a conclusion on a limited part of what we can define, rather than what is true for the whole. And so, in a way, you can recognize this because you feel based on the frequencies that are there. And let's say I put this in the book, if we give the Nobel Prize of physics to somebody, we give them a medal and we applaud and we think that this is really nice, but it doesn't touch us in the same way as a selfless act of kindness can do, right? Because we feel that is even a higher frequency, it's a higher vibration. A rational mind can't really quantify these things, but these are expressions of higher levels of consciousness. And so this is both of those are very difficult thresholds to cross over in a way if you're stuck in one. Because if you really feel that you're the victim of life, the moment you have to go to, no, but I can create the life, that can be a very difficult process for somebody to go to. And if you are very stuck in your mind and you believe science, I'm not saying science is not true, but it is not what is true for the whole. And you can't see it when you're there. And I'm an engineer, so
You've been there.
I know that world. But it's not all that exists. There are levels of consciousness that go far beyond, and they cannot be defined when our rational mind has experienced that in a certain level of awareness where we are at the world. And so these are two very fundamental, let's say, crossover points where people get to experience different things, right? They become empowered to create their life, and then they become aware of what's really true for them. And when you go to that point, and that's in a way the invitation that the book is, if you go to that point where you start to become aware of what is true, and you don't need all the details of the information, you don't need all the stories and all the technicalities about why you have this problem because this psychology book, no, you just know. You're in the shower, boom, you just know. You don't have to explain this to everybody, it's true because it's true for you. And when you are able to tap into those levels of consciousness, you will find out what is true for you. And that's where you become aware of the things you're holding on to that are not true for you. That's where you can become aware of the conclusions that you function from every day and you have bought as absolutely 100% real and true, but they aren't. They're just a construct of your rational mind that's working with the limited information that is available to it. And so the invitation for that book is like, okay, what would it take for you to experience that level of awareness, that level of clarity more often, so that allows you to find out what keeps you in those lower frequencies and let those things go.
Amazing. What about the judgment?
Okay.
We all have judgment, but I really like the way you explain the kind of judgment we can experience. We think that judgment, from my point of view, is like just saying this is not good and defending that, right?
Yeah.
But there is more.
Yes. It's a very... Yes, it's not a very well understood idea by many. So first, what you say can very well be a judgment, right? So when you see something or you see somebody and you say, oh, that's stupid, or that person is an idiot or whatever, that can very well be a judgment. So, but it doesn't necessarily mean when you say something negative about something or somebody that is always a judgment. So let's say somebody is acting really unkind and is being a bully or does all kinds of things that are just, have absolutely no caring or kindness for others. And you would see that and you would say, that person is being an asshole. Now, that doesn't at all mean that you are judging, because in that moment, that's what's true. That person is being an asshole. The thing is, does it have charge for you? Do you need to make that wrong? Or is it more like, okay, here's a book, there is a plant, this is a window, that person is being an asshole, and it has no charge with you because you're just seeing what is there. And we can recognize in a way when we have, let's say, a charge with it, when we have a judgment about it, when we say something, is because we feel contracted. We need to make that other person wrong for it. We're not curious to the least for what reason this person is acting that way. We just see that person does something, therefore that person is an asshole. I don't like that person. That person is doing things that shouldn't do. Nobody should do that. That's wrong. Like that stuff. That's the energy. Now there is an insistence of making it wrong. Now, that's one thing. So a negative comment can very well be a judgment, but it doesn't have to be a judgment. And it actually serves you when you see something that is negative, that you just acknowledge it's negative. It's better for yourself often to say, okay, that person is being an asshole, than to suppress it because you think you're being wrong because you're judging if you call somebody an asshole. No, somebody can be an asshole. Yeah, there can be 100 reasons for that person to be an asshole. It's okay. But in that moment, that person is just being an asshole. Okay. But you don't have to have any charge with it. Now, maybe you want to go find out why that is or help that person or not. It doesn't matter. What matters is that when you are having that feeling about it, and you don't have to say it, when you feel it, know that you are in judgment, and know that you wouldn't judge something in somebody else if you don't judge it in you. And this is something very few people really understand.
It's so powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so rather than thinking, oh shit, I'm judging, and making yourself wrong now for judging, and knowing that, no, think, hey, this is kind of nice, because that means I hold in some form that judgment that I have of that person or that situation about me. And if you go to that level of curiosity and say, hey, what's that about? Where is that coming from? Then you can really sort of let go of one of those things that keeps you in these lower places.
And when you find that, you stop feeling it?
No. We'll go to the solution later, but we'll finish the story about what a judgment is and how this functions. So that's let's say the negative things that occur in our lives. Now, and these can be very subtle, somebody chooses something and you need to make it a little bit wrong, because then you can be right about the choice that you make that is different. Somebody who lives a very different life than you, and you have to say something about it. You have to think something about it. You have to make a little sly, a little slide to that person about, or in your mind about, but that's blah, blah, blah. You have to say something to make that a little bit wrong so you can be right. Because that's what we do, right? We want to be right about ourselves. And so stuff that in a way challenges what we believe is right, we make wrong. But know that you're in judgments and you have a need to be right about your shit. That is just a bunch of things that you get to experience. And if you need to make that right, you can't experience something else. And so a lot of the limitations that we create is we need to be right about our life, about the identity of who we are, about where we are and why we are there. And we have a whole story about all these things, but what we can do and what we can't do, about why our values are better. And it's a whole construct that we make right, because we invested all our lives in creating it, and now we're here. And so we can't all of a sudden not be right about it, because that means we could do something else as well. And that would make us kind of wrong, because there are certain things we might want to like to experience that we didn't experience, and la, 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 la. So you need to be right about your shit, about your life, about your identity, about your family, about everything that you hold on to is your limitation to create and experience something else.
Boom.
Yeah. Now, we go to the other part of the judgments, because few people are aware that a judgment can be negative as well as positive. And often the positive judgments, they get us stuck even more. Because like we can have a charge with not liking somebody, we can also have a charge with very much liking somebody or very much liking something. And, you can see this in all kinds of forms of relationships all the time. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of family relationships sort of hinge on this very mechanism, right? So a lot of people have a lot of strong positive judgments about what it means to have family. No, I need to love my parents. I need to love my siblings. No, okay. But if you are looking at it with a judgment of, they're my parents, they're wonderful, they're my siblings, they're amazing because they are my siblings, that's not allowing you to see what is true and real. Almost everybody, like you said, functions from quite a bit or a lot of judgment. Parents are no different. They're just people, all of them. So they have these judgments too. And so they will judge you. This is what they do. They judge you because they need to be right about whatever they think you have to do. And this goes in very many levels of not so subtle to very subtle. But because you believe that they're your parents and they love you unconditionally and they do all kinds of things in your best interest, you think that it's okay for them to make you feel like shit because they're your parents. And no, they're trying to control you with their judgments because they're people and this is what people do. And so if you're let's say in the positive judgment about people, you can't see what's real and true. And you suffer because you're blinding yourself to be present and really being aware of everything that is going on. Like in my book, I use an example of two friends that start a company together, and they're so excited. No, my friend, I've known him forever and he's amazing or she's amazing and, it's going to be great. Right. You are blinded by the positive judgments you have about your friend because you think your friend is great, so it will be great. Because all you can see is it will be great. because nothing that doesn't match your judgments will come into your awareness. And so you're setting yourself up for often a very difficult experience, where after a few months you find out that you never really asked yourself any questions about how it would be to work on a daily basis with that person. You know, what that person really is good at and what you're good at, and if that's actually a good match. What really are the expectations that that person has and that you have, and if they would be aligned. And so, because you just have absolutely no awareness of the things that don't match the judgments that you hold on to. And we fill our lives with things that we often have a positive judgment about. And so they can really get us stuck, because we believe something is really great, but in reality, if you ask, does this really contribute to my life? You would be able to get a much greater awareness of what it actually creates for you, rather than remain blinded by the positive judgments you have and keep struggling and struggling and struggling, because you're not allowing yourself to see what is actually real and true. So the idea of a judgment is really, let's say, an energetic contraction, and that can be about something you have positive and negative ideas about, that prevents you, again, from seeing more possibilities, from making other choices, and from leaving these lower frequency experiences. So that's, in a way, in a nutshell, the theory of how these judgments are limiting us. And the most important thing to ask yourself is, do I have an insistence about this? Do I need to be right about my point of view? Do I need to defend it against other people? Do I start arguing about this? All this stuff are just 100% indicators you are in judgment. And the first chapter of my book is, you wouldn't be right or successful. And whatever success means for you, it means for you. I have no whatever, But if you are in this need to be right about stuff, on whatever level of subtlety that occurs, it's not like, I don't need to be, I shouldn't be needing to be right about things, so I'll keep my mouth shut. No, like the universe is not an idiot. That energy is there. And so if you need to be right about things, go ask yourself some questions, because that is a very limiting and destructive energy. You're in the pride, or lower versions of the frequencies that you can get to experience here, and that you then project out in the world, and the world will reflect back to you.
Okay, so once we start feeling contract and we find that we are defending something, good or bad.
Yeah.
And how can we recognize, when you see the judgment?
Yes.
How can you recognize what is the story behind? How can you know, you find your own truth?
Yes. So the first step is to acknowledge that you are judging, right? And to really just say, okay, I am judging here. Now, the second is, are you willing to change it? Or do you rather stay right? And it's okay, it's your life. I'm just explaining what these frequencies are. And if you don't want to experience these limiting things and you want to have other possibilities enter into your world, these lower frequencies are not going to help you. So it's your choice. You do you. So, but if you acknowledge it, and then the question, yes, I want to change this, I want to let go of this, then the next thing is to know that you wouldn't be judging in others if you don't judge it in you. And don't go judging yourself for judging. It's okay. It's okay. We all do. It's okay, because more judgment piling on to whatever is than you become aware of doesn't allow you to change it. The whole idea is that letting go of judgment relaxes it, allows you to see it clearly, allows you to let go of it more easily. Now, it depends a little bit on what the judgment is, and so there are some versions of examples that I discuss in the book. But one very powerful tool to use when you realize and you acknowledge that you are being in judgment of something or somebody outside of you is, you wouldn't judge it in others if you don't judge it in you. Because what really happens is somebody shows you an energy that looks a lot like something that you have been or done or chosen at any point, and you probably don't remember it, and in some cases it's not even from this life. And that energy that it gets presented to you looks a lot like that situation. that, you know, the choice you made, the thing you've done, the thing you've been. And so what happens is the connection is made to that situation. You have a judgment about whatever you've done in that moment, and boof, that contraction you start to feel. And now you feel the contraction, you see the thing, and so your mind goes, oh, that's wrong, you're wrong. And so now your mind creates a construct, right? Because you feel it, you think it, and now it's true. That person is an asshole, you're an asshole. And you're, okay. Okay. Yes, but what really happens is you show me something that I recognize in myself as something I've been done or chosen at some point in my life, and I put a judgment on it at that moment, and I haven't let that go, and you're showing me that judgment. So that's what occurs. Know that that's what occurs. So what you can do is say, everything I've been, done, or chosen that makes me judge this, I now destroy and uncreate it. Repeat that sentence in yourself, and you'll sense the contraction relaxing. And I'm not saying it's completely gone, but that's a very powerful thing to do with yourself. There are other versions and varieties and all these things that exist, and the book talks a little bit about more versions of it. But in essence, this is the mechanism at play, and this is a tool you can use to let it go.
So you don't even need to know what was that situation at the beginning.
No.
It's only about energy. Right?
Yes, sometimes it helps. It can help a lot with specific things. It can help a lot if you connect to what it is that makes you judge this. And so, but often you won't be able to get the awareness yourself immediately. And so this is a very powerful first step. And sometimes it's enough. Sometimes you may need to run it a couple of times. And maybe in some cases there is an added value in really getting the awareness, oh, when I was 5 years old, my mother judged me for something, and then I sort of absorbed that as being the truth, and I've been walking around with it. And when somebody really can bring you back to that memory, it can be even more powerful to release it. But that's a million different versions, so that always depends on the person. But this generic clearing is a great start.
Okay. And in these days, there are many tools around. People is living their life in a different way, practicing yoga, many practices. But a lot of them, or a lot of us, we try to avoid feeling bad using these tools, right? But why that don't help us all the time?
Why it doesn't help us to avoid feeling bad?
Yeah.
Well, I think what you're talking about, the mechanism at play, is where the most important thing that people are seeking is immediate comfort all the time, right? They don't want to feel bad. They don't want to be present with feeling bad. So they go look for an escape to make them feel good. And maybe they go drink alcohol to, numb their pain. But even some tools that may seem very sort of contributive can turn into an escape. Like yoga even can, if you keep doing yoga every time as an escape to make you feel better, it doesn't necessarily make you lean into whatever it is that that life is showing you. So it's okay. Nobody wants to feel uncomfortable for a long time. Nobody wants to feel sad or contracted for a long time, and sometimes it can be really, you can really feel disempowered to change that experience. I can really understand that. It's just that if you're not willing to be present with that contracting energy, and the only thing is to always seek the fastest way out of whatever it is that that doesn't make you feel good, even if you have no idea what the reason is for you not to feel good, you just don't feel good, it's not going to give you the awareness of what actually is at play. And so some tools in the world are amazing to help us relax and to help us feel better and all these things. It's just that there are moments where it can help you to really lean into the fear you have. Choose something that you're not comfortable with. Be present with the situation that you're not feeling good with, rather than what is the next thing that I can choose to get instant relief. And so, every person has their path, but sometimes it can indeed be that people are on a lifelong journey of escapism rather than occasionally choosing to say, okay, I don't like to experience this, but I am aware that it's showing me something about me that I am willing to look at. And it might take some time, but I know that this is, let's say, a transformation that is going to give me more space if I take it, rather than what can I choose next to not feel like shit. And so I think that's, and it's for everybody individually to choose whether they want to do it and when they want to do it. But I think that's what you're asking about.
Yeah. Okay. Makes totally sense.
Yeah.
So for the people who are watching us and maybe they want to learn more about these tools, where can they find
The book?
Yeah.
Oh, we're doing the promotion for the book. It's on Amazon.
It's in Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing.
Yes.
So we can get it from all around the world, right?
Amazon is pretty.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's beautiful. Also the cover. I
My
love
eye.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Power of creation.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ron.
We're wrapping this one up.
I think so. We've been for like an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. It was great.
Yeah. Let's continue with the next episode to know more about your experiences.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.